If you're not genuinely curious about the individual that you're so-called helping, you're not actually in it to help anyone. You're in it to hopefully be able to push a product, make a sale so you can get paid. Hey, welcome to the Insurance Buzz. We are your host, Courtney and Michael Weaver. Courtney, how you doing today?
I'm good. I got another juicy topic for you. We are going to talk about what I believe is one of the key components into getting whatever you want, especially when it comes to sales, and it's building rapport.
Getting people to know you, like you, maybe trust you.
In my case, it's getting people to like me.
Like you? Yeah. I mean, that's okay.
Yeah, so
let's dive into this.
I want to talk about it. I want to talk about it from the perspective because a lot of what we do in sales is almost toggling in between building rapport and then also getting the information that you need for your quote or for your sales presentation. But first, let's back up a little bit. So when I say building rapport, explain what building rapport is.
Yeah, so building rapport is finding commonalities, being curious about someone's situation to where you can not only ask them questions to find out more about their situation, who they are, what they're about, what they're looking for, but also find commonalities that you can relate to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Connection points and relatability is what it means for me.
I love that.
Is being able to get to know somebody and then be able to either get what you need or get what you want for your sales presentation. Or if it's just out in general and you're networking, getting to know somebody and then also seeing where you can help or add value. I think it all kind of ties in together because you'll start hearing little spots where you're
because that's the thing, like to actually be able to add value to someone's life, you have to be able to get to know that individual to be able to determine how you can add value to that individual.
I love building rapport.
I do too.
It is one of my favorite things, and I'm an incredibly curious human being.
I was going to say, humans fascinate me.
Yeah, like how we all got to this spot and why we're doing what we're doing. And I'm okay with making things weird and diving into the deep end of the pool and asking some pretty deep questions. So this actually came up for me. Rapport isn't just built into my everyday life. Now I want to get to know you. I want to get to see where I can add value. But we were updating our life insurance and I was getting more life insurance because when you're somebody who's spent your entire life in the insurance field, you're very much a big proponent of life insurance for yourself. So I was getting more life insurance and this was last year. And he came over and he was doing, the whole bit of like the blood draw and where they weigh you and they start asking you all these questions. Dave was his name. And it always makes me so nervous because they're taking your blood pressure and I'm just like talking 100 miles a minute and we're going through the whole bit. Dave has 2 kids. He spent some time in Central America. He has a new girlfriend. Like I got to know all of these things because my whole objective is I want the highest rating possible for my life insurance. And I wanted to get to know him because we're in like a mutual, we're in the same field, but I see rapport playing out over and over and over again. One of my favorite stories. Can I tell the story about
what's up
when we were on the airplane? And you were asking about
drinks? I
drinks?
know where this is going. Yeah,
okay.
Share that story. It's a good
one. This was, I would say it was like 2018, 2019. And we were flying Southwest. And I don't even remember where we were headed, but we were on the flight and they were not even doing drink service. It was at this spot where it was a short flight. We were like up and down kind of deal. And Michael starts chatting it up with the flight attendant. And he's a very nice guy. And Michael's, where are you from? How long you been doing this? What got you into this? And we're going to go into basic rapport questions that you can implement. But I want to share how this actually works. So building rapport, and then he did the ask. And Michael's ask was, so I heard that today is the day that you were giving out free whiskey on the plane. Mm-hmm. And I am so uncomfortable because I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe you asked that. cannot believe you just asked that. They're not even giving us water. Like, what are you doing? I am not kidding you. The guy comes back with not one bottle, but 2 bottles of whiskey and starts
A double.
It starts catering to him on, do you want Coke? Do you want that with ginger? I'm like, can I have some water? Oh my gosh. So I love sharing that story because it's all about how really building rapport, building that commonality, and then asking for what you want.
And look, and how that kind of got started was because the individual that had just passed us was kind of an asshole to this dude, and I don't I don't dig that shit. So it's like, I'm going to try to make this guy's day better. Like, I'm going to ask him some questions about himself, get him talking about himself. What's up? Let's break the ice. And then, I just happened to ask for a thing of whiskey, and the next thing I know, I got a double. So it's good. Like, but that's the thing. Like, it's, and that goes back to my old, like, if you don't ask, the answer is always no. But that would have never happened. Like, if I would have asked for it right at the point of before I ever asked questions, before I ever built rapport, before I ever got to know him, that would have been a hard no, because he had just had a bad experience with someone not being so nice to him.
Yeah. And I think that's important to mention. I think that's why rapport is so incredible, is because it builds almost that safety net of, okay, now I'm going to ask for what I need, but we already have a mutual understanding. You kind of understand who I am and I understand who you are. So let's walk through some basic rapport questions.
Yeah. And I want to echo what you're saying, and that's how you, you open the episode. But if you're struggling in sales, especially, rapport is the first place you need to look. Like, you can be great at asking for the sell. You can be great at putting together an amazing proposal or plan for someone. But if you don't take the time to actually get to know this individual that you're working with, be curious about their situation and how you can actually add value, just not looking at them as another task, but looking at the individual of, hey, this is how I'm going to help you build more rapport. Like, be genuinely curious with the individual you're talking to. Don't just view it as another task. Don't just view it as another quote or just another conversation. The more genuine you can be in this conversation and actually asking questions because you are genuinely curious, and when they answer the question, digging into what they just told you to, number one, show them you're listening, but number two, reiterate to yourself that you're listening and hearing what they're saying. I'm going to challenge, like, if you're struggling, dive back to the basics. And the basics are you have to be genuinely curious about someone's situation that you're talking to get to know them, so you can add the right amount of value to their life. You're just not a product pusher. You're just not trying to get to the next quote. You're not just trying to get to the next customer. Slow down and actually do what the individual needs you to do, and do what you need to do.
Yeah. I think I could easily go off on a tangent, so I want to get into the questions, because as our world starts to shift and as technology starts to shift, there is such a craving for human connection. And this is really where you can set yourself apart, not just from a tech space, but really as an individual. If you're in the insurance game, for the most part, you're selling all the same product.
Yep.
So this is really how you can dive in and go, okay, how do I, number one, get to know my customer and hear and listen for the information that I need, but how do I connect with them?
Yeah. This is a game changer. It really is. And it's not, I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying that learning how to build rapport is easy for you. It could be challenging. It could be stepping out of your comfort zone to get over the fear of rejection, getting over the fear of looking stupid, getting over the fear of, I don't know what question to ask next. Well, and that's okay.
Let's break this down. And I want to speak to anyone that's introverted like myself. So I may look like an extrovert, but I'm definitely an introvert. And this is something that the better I got at building rapport, the easier it was. It almost became like a shell for me, because the more questions I asked about themselves, the less I had to talk. So the less I felt like, ooh, was that stupid? Did I say the right thing there? Or should I be, am I talking too much? So building rapport for me as somebody who's introverted and in networking situations is like, ooh, what do we talk about? Has really kind of given me the confidence and almost the shell of, this is how I get to know somebody else and still feel safe and secure myself.
Yep.
So
I love that. So you ask questions to ask. So a really easy analogy is FOR, family, occupation, recreation. Because these are all things that are going to be easy questions to get into, and then you can dig deeper. So, hey, how long have you lived in the area? How you have family in the area? Do you have kids? How long have you been married? Okay. Okay, so that's family.
Yeah.
So occupation. Hey, what do you do for a living? This is a question that I ask every single person when on a professional setting call, like on a sales call. I want to know what they do for a living, because this is also going to allow me to somewhat understand their income, which allows me to understand what I need to do as a professional to make sure this individual's paychecks are protected. Okay. So what they do for a living, and then I dig into that. How long do you work there? What do you do there? What do you enjoy about what you do at work? And then, hey, when you're not working, what you doing for fun? Like recreation, all right? So, and then obviously the spouse, like what does your spouse do? So I like to get a whole picture. But recreation, what do you do for fun? What kind of hobbies do you have?
What are you most excited about right now?
What are you
Do you have
most
any
excited
vacations
about?
planned?
Yep, vacation.
Yeah.
Man, I'm about to go hit the mountains and shred. You like to shred? Like that's what we're talking about.
Well, yeah, and this is, the more you do this, the more like if you're asking the recreation question, you're looking for, do I have anything else I need to insure? Like, are there any toys that I need? Do we have a boat? Do we have any kind of like UTV? Like what's
you
going
have kids, life insurance.
Yeah.
You own a home. Okay.
When we're talking about the job, I always like to ask the question of, how did you get into that? Because that will kind of tell me like if they're headed towards retirement or how long they've been doing that. And what do you enjoy about your job? Or are you looking for something else too? Because that also cues me on, are we going to have a life change at any point that I need to be paying attention to? And most people are pretty strong on, they either love their job or they hate their job, or they're just like collecting a paycheck. So this kind of gets things going, and could be a potential teammate down the road, a producer. Anyways.
And it's digging deep. It's just not asking the, hey, what do you do for a living? Oh, I work at UPS. Great. So who are the other drivers in the household? What are their names? Great. So what do you like to do outside of work? No, when they say, oh, I work at UPS, you can go ahead and fact find a little information, but come back to that question. Hey, so how long have you been working at UPS? Like, what exactly do you do there? Like, are you a driver? Do you work in the warehouse? How long have you been doing it? Like, what does that even look like? Like, I'm curious. Like, what does that even look like? Like, you work in the warehouse? Like, what do you do? Like,
yeah. Yeah, because packages just magically show up here, so you wouldn't know how they get
like,
here.
What does that look like? Like, how many people do you work with? Are you on like a floor? Do you have what does that look like?
Yeah.
Like, I am genuinely curious about like what they're doing, like what they tell me. How long have you been married? However many years. Got any advice? Like,
yeah,
that's what I'm talking about. Like,
how'd you meet your wife? How'd you meet your husband?
Any vacations planned? I'm going here. What made you guys go there? Like, what made you pick that destination?
Yeah.
Like, dig into what they tell you. Because I'm just really curious. Like, why would you pick Yellowstone, or why would you pick?
Wait, nobody's gonna say why would you pick Yellowstone? It's Yellowstone.
It's Yellowstone. You got to go to Yellowstone.
You have to go to Yellowstone. See the buffs, man. Like, nobody's questioning that at all.
Okay, why are you going to Amarillo? Tell me what's
George Strait. And pick a different one. I can.
Or
find
those cars. What are the cars that are on the side of the highway that stand up? The
Yeah.
Cadillacs or whatever. Anyways, we're going off on.
We are.
All I'm trying to say here is this: dig deep. Actually listen to what they're telling you, and then ask a follow-up or fact-finding question based off of what they told you. Don't just ask a question, because look, we've all been guilty of this. I've been guilty of this early on in my sales career. I would ask the question I'm supposed to ask. All right, what do you do for a living? Oh, great. So who else are the drivers in the household? Like, and just move on. Let's just move on. Let's just view this person as another task. Let's just view this person as just whatever. I'm just trying to get done. I'm just trying to get the sell. No.
Negative.
Like, don't do that. That is what not to do.
Ask a question to listen. Don't ask a question to respond.
Yeah.
Now, I want to play devil's advocate a little bit here, though, and say, can you build too much rapport? Is there a thing of like doing too much of this?
So this is really interesting. And it's interesting that you asked this question because I actually just saw a post on Instagram the other day. And it was actually it was an insurance professional actually talking about this, about how your goal should be to keep them on the phone as long as possible. Because if you keep them on the phone long enough, eventually they're just going to get tired of you and say yes.
Oh, so just wear them down.
And I'm like, is this really what people are teaching? Like, that is, I'm sorry. I'm not just trying to wear someone down so that they eventually say yes because I'm a freaking annoyance in their life. Like, so if you have that mindset, I also think that that is screwed up and jacked up. Like, I want to get to know someone and do a good job for someone. My goal is not to wear someone down so that they feel obligated to say yes to me. That is terrible advice. Like, that, if they say yes to you, they're going to be gone probably a month or 6 months later. Like, and so I bring up that story because if you
Dude, that sounds like a terrible first date.
It's
too.
like
I'm just going to wear somebody down.
To be honest, that comment reminded me of like when you go to a car dealership and you work with a salesperson that's not necessarily trained, and all they do is like try to wear you down. Let me go talk to my finance manager. Let me go make sure I can get this approved. Shit, just be honest and transparent. Like, do things for the right reasons, all right? But I'm going to get back on the rapport building. I'm going to answer the question, but I'm glad you asked me that because I thought,
dude, you got to stay off Instagram.
I thought it was relevant. Okay, I don't know if there's too much rapport, but you also have to, when you start to get the feeling like, hey, this conversation's I've probably built enough rapport. Asking the questions is becoming almost uncomfortable, or I can get a feeling that this individual's like
shutting down.
Yeah. That's a good indicator that, hey, it's time to wrap it up.
Cue the music.
Now, I say this to say so many times in the upfront conversation, they are trying to rush you off the phone. And so don't let this be an excuse of, oh, well, that's an indicator. They're trying to rush me off the phone. No, you haven't even taken the time to build rapport and get them warmed up yet for the conversation. So I'm talking more once you're in the conversation, you get them talking. Once you start to hear, or you feel, typically I feel like, okay, this conversation needs to be wrapped up. I need to do my thing. I need to get the proposal put together so I can give them a call back, or if you're keeping them on the phone, whatever you want to do. So I don't know if there's too much rapport, but once you get a feeling that like, hey, okay, I'm dragging this on, or it's typically a feeling is what I would say.
So in rapport, I think a big thing is...
Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. I think a big thing is to have an intention of when you're going into that. So in the insurance space, our intention is to get the information needed for the quote. That's why we're building rapport, but it's also to create some connection. Now, what I see happen a lot, and I want your thought on this, is to where somebody gives you something and you start selling in the rapport building conversation.
Don't do that.
So an example of this would be somebody says, I live on a lake and we love to go boating. And then immediately you go into selling boat coverage, what that looks like, talking about liability, increasing your liability, getting a PLUP. So rapport is rapport. That is just where, for us as sales professionals, we're gathering the information that we need and taking when they give us those little cues to prepare the quote for when it's time to sell. So when you're in rapport, and I want you to clarify this, you are not selling.
No. In the example you just used is really great, because if somebody is like, yeah, man, we go to the lake, so you're like, oh shoot, they have a boat. Okay, they have a jet ski. I'm not going to start selling them on boat insurance. I'm going to say, what do you guys do when you're at the lake? Like, do you do water sports? You skiing? You wakeboarding?
You're inviting yourself.
Man, I like to go out on the wakeboard and shred every day. Every time I have a chance, I'm going to be out there. Like, what do you guys do?
What's your favorite flavor of High Noon? What's your boat drink?
Oh, High Noon.
Nooners.
Yeah, those are hard to beat. They are. You bring up a valid point. It's just, and I want to reiterate this real fast because you asked a good question. Is there too much? Is there such thing as too much rapport? It is amazing if you are intentional. Okay, if you are intentional, what you can do in just 10 minutes. Like, you can build a lot of rapport with somebody in 7 to 10 minutes.
Dude, I have so many inappropriate jokes that are going in my head right now.
But it's true, though. Like, if you're very intentional about what you're doing, it doesn't take an hour, okay? It doesn't take, like, you can build a ton of rapport in 7-10 minutes. Because in the insurance industry, I mean, sometimes customers are going to be, like, at work. And they don't have an hour to be able to stay on a conversation. And so you have to be able to control that conversation, warm them up be genuinely curious. Like, someone you know when someone is talking to you to just get the information they need from you, or you know when somebody's talking to you and they're genuinely curious or interested in you. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Makes total sense.
So be the person that is genuinely interested and curious about the individual you're talking to and trying to help out.
I feel like there are so many, I don't know if we can do this and I might be overcommitting. Could we include like a document of like rapport building conversations?
Yeah. So our rule, we can do like an 80-20. That's the rule I live by, is like 80% of the conversation needs to be rapport building. 20% needs to be the fact finding for the information needed. So yeah, we could definitely create a like questions to ask or for sure. Okay.
Let's create that. We'll include that in the show notes, or you can text us at 816-727-7610 and just say that you want the rapport building questions. And we can get those emailed over to you. I think that would be good to include because the 80-20 rule is a big one that I see a lot that would be helpful. So like for me as somebody to not get caught up in the weeds, to not be like, oh, you got 2 kids, like, and just, I will.
Because you still have to find out the information while building rapport. Because you still have a job to do. Like, you still need to be able to get the information needed to be able to put together your proposal or plan to be able to help actually be able to add value to the individual. I mean, if you just want to, like,
have a conversation.
Yeah. And there's a time and place for that. And you'll get plenty of times and places to be able to do that once they become a customer, for sure.
Yeah.
But you got to have a good, healthy balance. But the biggest thing I want to be curious. Like,
okay. We kind of skipped over this. I want you to reiterate this. The 80-20 rule.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so 80% of the conversation, especially on that fact-finding upfront conversation where you're warming the customer up, 80% of that conversation has to be about rapport building. So asking those questions I went over, the family, occupation, recreation. 20% of the time, you have to get the boring stuff you need for the quote. So the names, the date of birth, the types of vehicles, for example. Okay, so this is what do you own or rent? These are the questions. So as I'm asking, like, okay, what's a good question here? So I could say, hey, Courtney, so what's your spouse's name?
Michael.
And what's Michael's date of birth?
February 27th.
February 27th. Perfect. So how long have you and Michael been together?
Oh, gosh, 12 years.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Where did you get married at?
We got married at a haunted hotel.
Okay, so you see what I'm talking about here. Like, I'm gonna fact find a little bit, and then I'm gonna go back into rapport building, and I'm gonna build rapport and then I'm gonna ask a quick little fact finding question. Okay, so hey, do you own or rent your home? I own. Great. So where do you work at it? Where do you work again? What do you do for a living? Mm-hmm. If I haven't asked that question. So sprinkle in the fact-finding questions, back to rapport. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What it shouldn't be, okay.
Let's hear what it shouldn't
be. What most sales professionals, and I hate to call them sales professionals, but what most salespeople typically do that are untrained is they'll ask 80% fact-finding questions for the quote. Look, the Geicos are, if you call a Geico, like, this is what you're going to hear. Like, okay, who are the drivers? What are their names? What are their date of births? What's the year, make, and model of vehicle you drive? Can you tell me your address of your house again? And they might sprinkle in a couple. So what do you do for a living? They're even asking that question. They're not going to dig into that question. They're going to ask that question because they need to say, oh, this person makes this much money. So, like, they have it flip-flopped, all right? Most salespeople have it flip-flopped. They're more concentrated on the information they need for a quote and building very little commonalities and getting to know the customer, whereas my rule, or our rule, is you take more time to build rapport and get to know the customer, less time actually getting the information needed for the quote, because that shit is boring.
Well,
and you're not different than anybody else.
Right. You can't separate yourself. And building rapport is really the foundation. It's the jumping point of your presentation, finding the hot button, being able to overcome objections. Like, this is where you can really dig into it deep. Even when you were saying that, the example that you were giving and saying it in reverse, your voice, like your voice fluctuation and your voice tone changed.
Because you're an order taker at that time. All you are is an order taker. You're not actually concerned about the customer. Because if you're not concerned enough to build rapport and get to know the customer, you're not actually concerned with helping the customer. You're concerned with pushing a product. Let's just call it what it is. That's like, good. If you're not genuinely curious about the individual that you're so-called helping, you're not actually in it to help anyone. You're in it to hopefully be able to push a product, make a sale so you can get paid. Is that a mic drop situation?
Yeah. If I could slam my microphone down on the ground, I would. But it's very much attached.
Oh.
This is so. I love building rapport because it really is kind of the basis, at least for me, of, like you would say, warming up the customer. But it also gives me confidence in, the more I do it, the more I can hear little things of, ooh, I need to write that down. I need to make sure that I pay attention to that. And this is everyday life. Like, you are building rapport with people all the time. And this is not the treetops conversation. This is like, we're getting into it. What do you do for fun? What do you do on the weekends? How long have you lived there? What brought you to the area? You know,
Yes.
do you live close to your parents? How old are your kids? What are they involved in? Like, these are all questions that as human beings, we're asking anyways. We're just asking it with the clear intention of, I'm going to build a proposal or a presentation or a product that serves this customer's life right now.
Yeah. So I think the last thing I really want to, because we've hit this home probably, but the last thing I really want to say is imagine that you were on a first date with someone.
I immediately thought of our first date. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Are you going to build rapport and ask questions to get to know that person? Or are you just going to be like, hey, so are you going to be like, what's your height and weight? What's your...
You coming home later?
Yeah, like you're going straight... No, you're going to build... Like, first dates are your first impressions.
Can I tell a story right now?
And so your first 15... Look... But I'm serious right now. Your first impression is important to the customer because this is going to allow you to differentiate yourself from everyone else out there. No one else is asking them about their situation. No one else is asking them about their vacations. No one else is asking them about the most exciting thing they have going on in their life right now. So, first impressions. It's like your first call with a customer is like a first date. Make it count.
Yeah. I'm not going to tell the story. I was going to tell the story about our first date.
What's up?
When we went to the Japanese. Can I tell this
Share
story?
it. What's up?
Okay.
Wait, you gonna? Yeah.
So our first date, and he did a great job of building rapport, and he got to know me. But I'm really glad that you did, because when we went there, we went to a Japanese steakhouse, and we sat down, and the waiter comes by, and he's like, "This is not the same girl that you had with you the last time you were here." And I looked at Michael like, excuse me?
So, lesson learned, do not take first dates to the same Japanese steakhouse every time.
Diversify.
Yeah,
All right.
find multiple Japanese steakhouses.
I love it. Thank you so much for listening. If you love this episode, please make sure and let us know. Leave us a 5-star rating and review.
We appreciate y'all, man. We love y'all. We appreciate you, your support. If you found today helpful, give us a 5-star review. That would help us out a ton. As always, time is the most valuable and important asset that we all have. We appreciate you spending time with us. Go out and make it great.